Hey everybody, this is Dave Little coming to you live from the Epic Sports Broadcasting Network. Thank you all for coming to hang out tonight. And I've been talking with a lot of folks, and I've talked to IDJ about this. So I just want to give a response to IDJ and his critique of StratOMatic baseball, in particular, the other night. And this is just a friendly discussion. Not trying to pick any fights or make any enemies or anything like that. Um, but some things that IDJester said I wanted to reflect on. And what I am going to do, I have about 3 or 4 points that I would like to make. And I'm going to just go through my whole spiel to start with. And I'm not going to pay a whole lot of attention to the chat because we could get into a whole argument in the chat room and not get through the thoughts I have to share. So rather than engage in spirited debate throughout the talk, let me get my points out there first, and then we can certainly have plenty of time to discuss whatever thoughts are on your guys' mind. Now, this is going to be limited to baseball. I know there's been some debate about the hockey and some criticisms of the hockey. I am neither a hockey fan nor a hockey player, so I don't have anything to say on that topic. But I have a lot to say on StratOMatic baseball and my history with it. I first learned about StratOMatic baseball back in 1986 when I had been playing Status Pro baseball just solo, and I met a guy that I was in school with who was a Strat player, and he said, "Why don't you come with me and my friends and hang out and play some Strat together?" And I thought, yeah, great idea. That wasn't a very serious league. It was, just four guys sitting around on a Friday night drinking beer and throwing dice and hooping and hollering and eating nachos with cheese and that sort of thing. But as the years went by, I developed more of an appreciation and enjoyment for StratOMatic baseball on a number of levels that I am going to discuss here tonight. And there are really three things that I want to get across in this video. First is to convey some understanding about how the cards are developed. Second, to convey some understanding about the StratOMatic company itself and why it is what it is. And thirdly, to talk about the audience of people who play Strat and why they have been such avid supporters of Strat over the years, myself included. And we'll go from there. Playing any kind of a sports game is like drinking coffee. Some people don't drink coffee at all. Some people are happy to have a cup of Joe from their neighborhood McDonald's. Some people want to go to Starbucks and get double mocha cappuccino, salted caramel, pumpkin spice latte, whatever, and that's what they want from their cup of coffee. And nobody's wrong. There's no wrong way to drink coffee. There's no wrong way to enjoy sports games. I don't use words like hater. I don't use words like fanboy. And at the end of the day, we're all friends with different opinions about different ball games. So that's that. Some of the things that IDJester brought up. First, let me talk about Strat cards. IDJester said he didn't like the quality of the cardboard that they used and why there was only so many cards on a standard team deck, and you had to pay extra for extra cards and that sort of thing. So let me show you first of all. These are my Strat cards from the 2004 season from the World Championship tournament I played in. So this would have been, let's see, the 2004 cards came out in 05, And so this would have been in January of '06 when I went and played in the StratOmatic World Championship. My first round draft pick was Albert Pujols, and here's the Albert Pujols card. And I don't know if you're getting good resolution on this, but you can see my copy of the Pujols card, and it's got writing at the bottom of it with on-base chances and hit chances and total bases and home run chances and all the different things that Albert Pujols was able to do in 2004 with this season card. And so playing in tournaments and draft leagues, you get these cards and you play with them 80 games in a tournament or in a draft league, and by the end of the year they're pretty beaten up, but they're easy to handle, and you've got notes written all over them. And for some reason, somebody along the way, I don't remember when this happened, but one of these cards was actually labeled an asshole, and I don't remember who it was. But something must have happened to somebody in the tournament. So these are the Strat cards, and we love these Strat cards. But the thing about Strat cards, and the thing about Strat, the company in general, is that one of the biggest expenses that StratOmatic incurs on a yearly basis as a mom and pop company is the expense of printing costs. And in order to keep the company financially solvent year after year after year, they're 50 years old now or more, one of the things they want to do is keep the printing costs down. So they don't use fancy paper. They use decent paper, and it holds up well. But there is also, this is part of the reason why the limited stats are released and the extra cards are extra cards. Because for people who play in tournaments and for people who play in leagues, they're not going to use the full card set. And let me give you an example of this. I'm going to flip back to, let me pull up my transition to the full screen. So now let's take a look at, this is Dave Valley. Vale, however you pronounce this. I think it's pronounced Dave Valley. And if you look at his stat line in 1986, this guy had 60 at-bats. He had 5 home runs. He had 7 walks. He had a batting average of .340, on-base percentage of .417, slugging percentage of .679, and OPS of .1096. Incredible numbers for a guy that just had 60 stinking at-bats. Now, I mentioned that the league I played in was, the first league I played in was just a beer and pizza kind of league, and wasn't a very serious attempt at recreating, the true sense of baseball. Dave Valley was the #1 pick in the 1987 draft league that I played in, with a bunch of guys sitting around drinking beer and eating nachos. And he dominated that league with a monster card based on 60 at-bats. And so in more serious leagues and in tournament play, this card would never see the table. In the star tournaments, you've got to have at least 300 plate appearances to be eligible as a position player, at least 250 plate appearances to be eligible as a catcher. And so for draft leagues and for tournament play, this card would never see the light of day. And that is why a lot of the Strat audience is people who play draft leagues and tournaments. They don't want all of the second rate or second line, third line. In fact, in the Seattle roster in 1986, Dave Valley was the 4th catcher. There were 3 catchers ahead of him in terms of usage. And so to pay money for Strat as a company to print, cards for all 4 catchers on a team roster, and to expect the audience of draft league players and tournament players to shell out money for these cards that only have 60 plate appearances is, in the mind of the Strat business model, not worth the printing cost. So you can think of it as, I'm paying money and I have to pay extra to get all the cards, or you can think of it as, I only want a subset of cards. I'd rather pay less and just get the cards that would be draft eligible and tournament eligible. And for folks who want to play in broader context of replay leagues and that sort of thing, that want to use the full set of all four catchers that appeared in a game for the Seattle Mariners in 1986, you can pay extra and get those extra guys in the extra card set. Keeps down the expenses for the bulk of the Strat-O-Matic draft league and tournament player customer base, and also keeps down the printing costs for Strat-O-Matic, the company. And so that's why you don't get all 500 or whatever cards in the original printing, but if you want to pay extra and get extra cards, you can. So that's the point about the Strat Company. It is a one-man shop for all intents and purposes. It is Hal Richmond and whatever skeleton crew of people he needs to simply produce 4 games a year: baseball, basketball, hockey, and football. And he has made that business model work for 50 years now, when lots and lots and lots and lots of other companies have come and gone in that period of time. And that's how he does it, by having a successful business model. Unfortunately, the downside of having a Barebones crew like that is that Strat-O-Matic customer service is poor. And I won't debate that point with anybody. It just is what it is. I've never had good experiences with Strat customer service. They're undermanned. The people they have are analytics people and people like that, and they don't have a true sales, marketing professional type person to run good customer service the way that any other company would run good customer service. So for those of you who think that Strat's customer service is lousy, you are fully correct. The other thing that comes out of this notion of a bare bones minimalist crew of people working at Strat is that they only have one computer programmer. And he is responsible for maintaining 4 computer programs in a year. And so, the other night when IDJester talked about, Madden and FIFA and all these games that have all these cool graphics, it takes an awful lot more than one guy working on 4 games to produce graphics at that quality. So Strat-O-Matic will never attempt to compete with, MLB The Show or, FIFA or Madden or any of these fancy graphic companies in terms of the graphic interface that comes with the computer game. Once again, that's keeping costs down. Personnel costs are expensive. Printing costs are expensive. And so they run on a Barebones crew and they produce computer games 4 times a year. And they have to make up the cost for that, and they're not going to put a lot into the graphics, especially when you look back at the fact that that's not the big demand of their customer base. Their customer base is still draft league players and tournament players. So the idea that Strat even produces computer games, Strat was very, very late to the game at getting into the computer generation. For a long time, Hal Richmond had no interest whatsoever in producing a computer game. He just wanted to do cards and dice. And eventually he got into the computer game genre, really for 2 reasons. Number one, to support stat keeping, and number 2, to support league play. And those two go hand in hand. And while you can criticize Strat for the very poor graphics that they have, if you go on to the Strat Facebook group or any of the Strat discussion groups, you don't hear people clamoring for fancier graphics, more bells and whistles around the user interface, other than netplay. Netplay is the one thing that is less than perfect in Strat. It's a tough thing to program. It's the single biggest thing that I hear Strat people complaining about. We want a better netplay interface that's easier to use and works better for head-to-head play online and does the things that we want to do in order to play our drafts and play our tournaments. So I don't hear people clamoring for more graphics in Strat. That brings us to our user base. What does the user base want? These are tournament players and league players. And IDJester mentioned that opening day is a big deal. And certainly it is a big deal because that's the day when people get their cards and have their yearly StratOMatic drafts. And a lot of the guys that are in these leagues, if you talk to them, these are guys who, played together in a face-to-face league when they were in college, and then one guy moved east and one guy moved west and one guy went north and one guy went south. And we think it's awesome that StratOMatic has this league set up so that we can keep our league together, even though guys have moved all over the country and all over the world. We can still come together and play our league games together. Strat has advanced by leaps and bounds over the years in the ability to be a software platform for league play. And that's true in two ways. Let me pull up the Strat program here, and we'll pick a league here, 1990 National League, Cincinnati. The first way that the Strat has improved greatly is in the ability to share files. Every time I play a game in Strat, it creates a file. I can wrap those game files up, send them off to my commissioner. He imports them directly into the database, and files come in and out, back and forth from all around the country and all around the world. And it is a very, very simple process to play 2 weeks worth of games or a month worth of games, bottle those all up in a single zip file, send it off to the league commissioner, have the league commissioner import the stats, rebuild the league with the new stats incorporated in it, send that league file out to players all over the country and around the world, and everybody just grabs the file, imports it into their Strat program. You've got your monthly file update just like that. The other way that the Strat computer game has improved greatly over the years is in the ability to create a computer manager. In most draft leagues, you play your home games at your own computer, and then you send a manager file out to players around the country and around the world to use your game instructions to play your road games against their home teams. So, for example, with the Cincinnati 1990 team, if I go to Team and go to Update Computer Manager, I have the ability from this Computer Manager, if it ever comes up here, I can set my starting rotation for a month, a year, the entire season, however long I want to set up my starting pitcher schedule. Draft guys in particular need to keep a very close rein on player utilization. You can't just throw a guy out there and let him bat 700 times if he only batted 60 times in the regular season. With each batter, I can program avoid lefties, avoid righties, bunt more, don't bunt. How often do they hit and run? How often do they steal? I can save at bats here if I avoid using them as a pinch hit in the blowouts. I can remove them for a defensive sub. The managerial options in Strat are myriad. I can go into Super Hal, and I can govern bullpen logic for every conceivable situation. When do I want my closer to pitch? When do I want my lefty and righty starters to, or setup guys to pitch? How often do I want to throw my mop-up guys out there? Based on score, based on number of outs, based on who the batters they're going to be facing are. There is a myriad of managerial functionality that has improved over the years by leaps and bounds. And every year this gets more and more detailed. And draft leaguers and tournament players love that. So to say that Strat has not innovated their game in 50 years is not true. The interface is still very primitive. The graphics aren't great, and the the bells and whistles of the visual presentation of the game certainly don't compare to out of the park baseball or a lot of the other programs that are available out there. And if that's the flavor of coffee you want to drink, more power to you. But for the draft leaguers and the tournament players, we love being able to create a computer manager at painstaking levels of detail, and in a single in a single step, zip up this computer manager, send it to guys all over the world who can play their games against the 1990 Cincinnati Reds, and send those results into the commissioner, and in a matter of minutes the commissioner can import those files and go. So these are some of the things that keep the Strat user base loyal to Strat. Wonderful ability to move guys in and out, move stats in and out of the program, to move managers in and out of each other's programs, and the statistical database. The last thing I want to point out about Strat is their statistical database, which can be kept from year to year and season to season. And let me show you the piece de resistance. This is a historical baseball project. This is a group of guys who have been replaying baseball history over years and years and years using Strat. You can see we have 1990 National League is represented here all the way back to 1901. We have replays that are in the database, and if we pull up this encyclopedia, we can see. Let's take a look at the batter register. And here are the batter registers. We can see Hank Aaron every season of the historical baseball project that he has played in, from 54 all the way through 76. Here's his lifetime batting average. He's had over 13,000 at-bats in StratOMatic baseball with almost 4,000 hits, 835 home runs. You can see all this stuff in the Strat encyclopedia from years and years and years of us compiling data. So to answer your question, why do you just want the same old game every year and every year? Here's why: because we love the consistency of knowing that we can play these seasons anytime that we want to and compile statistics over time. And if we go back to our history, my good friend in Atlanta, Georgia, Larry Foster, is the guy in charge of this, and he has compiled all these seasons. Let's look at how things went in 1990. 1990 was a big disappointment for me because I played the Reds, and I came very close to the Reds' performance that year, and the guy who had the Dodgers won 100 games. So I didn't even win my division the year that the year that the Reds won the World Series most recently. I had Randy Myers and Rob Dibble on the All-Star team, and you can see that Cal Daniels tore up the league The Dodgers lost to the Expos in the playoffs, and the Expos went on to the World Series that year. And so this is why I love Strat, and why Strat has been a passion of mine over many years. And much like what flavor of coffee you drink, there's no right and wrong way to drink coffee. There's no right and wrong way to play these games. And looking at my notes, let's see, how many cards and dice companies and computer game companies have come and gone. Two more points I want to make. Number one, StratOMatic has tons and tons and tons of research that goes into producing every season. And I would say that, I don't know about the other companies, but the hours and hours and hours of research that go into producing a StratOMatic set is second to none. And you can see when you look at the Albert Pujols card, you will get a very good approximation of how many double plays Albert Pujols grounded into. What's the likelihood that a fly ball hit by Albert Pujols is going to be a sac fly versus a fly ball that's not deep enough to score the run? Things at that level of complexity that are a lot more intense than just grabbing the numbers off of Baseball Reference and dumping them into a spreadsheet that spits out cards at the end of the day. The basis of these cards is what happened in real life. One of the complaints that IDJester had was why there wasn't a showy, what's the guy's name in the Otani, the Otani card, why the batting card and the pitching card were not both included in the standard set. And the reason for that is that Otani didn't pitch enough innings to qualify as one of the top 12 Angels pitchers that went into the standard set that year. It wasn't a conspiracy of people sitting around StratOMatic saying, let's keep Otani out of the standard card set and force folks to buy the extra cards to get the Otani pitching card. The fact of the matter is, if they wanted to include the Otani pitching card in the standard set, they would have had to leave out somebody else's card that was more deserving of that spot based on their pitching innings pitched and their performance that year. And that would be, from a statistical standpoint, kind of a sellout, or kind of a cop-out, kind of a marketing decision. They would be putting marketing over statistical realism, which is what Strat refuses to do. A parallel situation. Imagine if Tim Tebow had come up in September for the Mets and had 60 at bats, and everybody says, "Oh, we want a Tim Tebow card." Tim Tebow is a very popular guy. We'd love to get his Strat card. Why don't you put that into the standard set? Well, okay. Who are you going to take out of the standard set to put Tebow into the set? You're going to take out somebody who was a more vital component of the Mets, aside from a September call-up who just happened to be a popular celebrity. So that's the Otani issue in a nutshell. So statistically speaking, the appropriate place for Otani in a Strat card set was in the set with the extra players, so that folks who want the extra guys that would not rise to the level of being eligible for tournaments or draft play, that's where the Otani card was available. The last thing I want to talk about is the future of StratOMatic, and in fact the future of cards and dice and tabletop gaming for sports players as a whole. IDJester makes a very valid point that you can't put a StratOMatic computer game in front of a 13-year-old kid who likes using his joystick for Madden and MLB and all the fancy very graphic intense games that people play on their consoles and expect it to compete, and he is absolutely correct about that. And so, Strat-O-Matic would be making a big mistake if they tried to compete in that market. There are two markets where Strat and other sports simulation games should be competing, and I think the first one that gets there is going to have a leg up on the market. The one crowd that is still likely to play cards and dice and tabletop and statistically based simulations is the fantasy football crowd. Because fantasy football is a lot more like Strat than it is like Madden. Guys who do fantasy football, guys and gals, really get deep into the numbers and really get deep into player performance. And the difference is in fantasy football, they're trying to predict ahead of time how things are going to go next week versus Strat-O-Matic and the simulation games that allow us to enjoy and reminisce about players we rooted for in the past. But the fantasy sports crowd would be a good crowd for the cards and dice game people to market to. The other crowd that is a potential market out there is the mobile device market. There are always people running around on airplanes and walking down the street and hanging out in the Panera Bread, and they're all on their phones and they're all on their tablets and their mobile devices. I play a couple of mobile games that are basically collectible card type games. If you win enough games, you get enough points that you credit. I play a basketball game that allows you to get better and better players as you advance up through the ranks. And if the cards and dice simulation companies could tap into the mobile device markets, again, I think that's another opportunity for growth of the sport among people who, as much as they love their joystick and graphic intense experiences, you can't always do that on a plane. You can't always do that sitting at an airport the way that you can in front of a console. And so I think those two markets, the fantasy football crowd and the mobile device crowd, are potentially future audiences that could be reached by whether it's Strat or OOTP or any other company. So that's everything I had to say. IDJester, man, I love you. I respect your opinions. I'm glad we did talk about this on Discord before I went live. I'm not here to pick any fights or call anybody names or anything other than just to give my experiences as a Strat player and why I'm passionate about playing Strat-O-Matic, and why some of the criticisms that IDJester put forth maybe just provide a little different perspective on that. So that's what I have. Thanks to everybody who came into the Strat into the chat room. Our Red Sox fan, they should have included it as a gift to the customer base, the Otani card. Maybe that's a valid point. But then again, it goes back to printing costs. The Strat cards are printed on sheets of 6, and so I guess if you had printed, a bunch of sheets of Otani with, 6 cards to a sheet and cut those up and sent those out, that might have been a thing. But in terms of the Strat decision to not put that in the standard card set, that is strictly a statistically driven, baseball-based decision, and not some cynical marketing conspiracy to force people to pay more money for stuff that they feel like they should have had anyways. So for the crowd that wants the full set of Strat cards every year, again, within the printing cost realm, you can get that. If you want a more focused set of cards for running a tournament or running a draft league, you have that option. So those are the options about Strat cards that are available, and why they are produced the way they are produced. It's been a company with a 50-year track record. And as I mentioned, any number of card and dice companies have come and gone. Any number of computer game companies have come and gone. Micro League Baseball I used to love. Earl Weaver Baseball a lot of people loved. There was a really cool graphics-driven Tony La Russa baseball game that I played on the PC that I got a lot of enjoyment out of. Those things have come and gone, and Strat has stood the test of time, and those are what I believe to be the reasons why. So thanks everybody for listening to me spout off about my opinions. I am going to cut things off now. Thanks to Sports Time Machine, our Red Sox fan, Robbie Wartburg, Sportsman Z. I think I saw Steve Tower pop in here, Ken Castro, and for everybody who wants to weigh in the discussion. I put a link to the IDJester original video in the description of this video. So watch my stuff, watch Al's stuff. Let's have a friendly discussion here. Let's have a friendly discussion on the Facebook page, on Discord, and why people like what they like, and why people drink the flavors of coffee that they drink. And that's my opinion about Strat and where I'm coming from. So thanks everybody for watching. That's my stream, and I am out of here.